In this video, we're going to show you how to install the CV axle on your Subaru Legacy located behind your front wheels. Using a 19mm thin wall socket, I'm going to go ahead, loosen and remove our lug nuts and our locking key. Go ahead and grab that wheel, remove it, and set it aside. Now right here, our tie rod end is going to come up through our knuckle, and there's a cotter pin holding this as a security piece, locking that nut in. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this cotter pin. I'm just using a pair of cutters here. You can use regular pliers. I'm going to start by bending out the legs here on this. Just kind of line those up, push them down, and ideally, I'm going to try and pull this cotter pin out whole. Now, cotter pins are a one-time use, so we're not going to be reusing this. Sometimes if you can get that caught with the cutters, you can pinch it and rock it. Pinch and pull. There we go. I was able to get that out. Now let's go ahead and loosen this nut. Now I'm going to use a 17mm socket on my ratchet. Now you can use an impact gun if you want to. Now that we've broken it free, I'm going to go ahead and use my impact gun, and we're going to go ahead and loosen this probably about 2/3 of the way up, but we're going to leave it attached. All right, well, the nut came off. I'm just going to go ahead and thread that back on. Just a few threads. Now we're going to use this nut as a capture nut. We're going to go ahead and separate our outer tie rod end from the knuckle. And we're going to go ahead and strike the knuckle right here, and that should release this tie rod end. Now that we have this loose, we're going to go ahead and remove that nut. And we could drop this out. Now we have our ABS wire coming up. It attaches to our strut here, and it comes over and attaches on the inner wheel well here. We're going to use a 12mm socket to loosen and remove both of these bolts. We're going to be reusing those bolts, so set those aside. Now we have our brake flex hose coming up from our caliper and attaches to the back side of the strut using a 12mm bolt. So I'll go ahead and use that socket. 12mm socket, loosen and remove that bolt, set that aside. Now the axle nut itself normally has a peened in edge right here. There's a little dimple in the axle shaft itself, and that's normally there to lock that axle in. Ours is pretty much rusted. There's not much to really knock back out of that peening. We're just using a little punch here to go ahead and work that out. Now using a 30mm socket, we're going to loosen and remove the axle nut. Once we have the axle nut removed, we now want to go ahead and make sure that the axle shaft is free from the wheel hub splines. Go ahead and put a punch in the center and just give it a few whacks. And you can see that that axle is definitely free. There we go. Now I want to go ahead and loosen and remove the nuts here and here for our strut to knuckle. Now that's a 19mm nut. On the other side, it's a 19mm bolt head. So I'm going to put a wrench on the other side. Set those nuts aside because we'll be reusing those. Now you want to be prepared here. Once we remove these bolts, the knuckle is going to want to swing away. We want to make sure that we don't have any tension in either one of the ABS or the flex hose. If we thread this nut on there just a little bit, And go ahead and tap this. You should be able to gently tap that through. Now I'm just using a punch to go ahead and knock that out the rest of the way. And go ahead and remove that. There's the bolt. Now as we're doing this here, we can go ahead and grab that axle. Go ahead and knock that through. You can use a punch in the middle here like we did to make sure it was free. Okay, our axle is now free from our knuckle. Now let's go ahead to the inboard portion and pop that out from the diff. Now right here, the axle goes into the front diff. I'm gonna use a pry bar and just gently get between the CV axle and the diff and just give it a quick little pop. And that's it. Now it might lose a little bit of differential fluid from here, so we do have some towels underneath to catch that. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that axle and slide that out. There it is. Now that we have the axle out, you want to go ahead and clean everything up here using some spray solvent. Wipe everything down, clean it, get rid of all of that grease that pretty much was slung out of that CV axle. Now while we're here, you do want to pay attention to this axle seal right here. Now we do have all kinds of grease and everything sprayed around here. If you find that there's excessive amount of differential fluid all over the place, you want to go ahead and replace the seal. Now is the time to do it. Let's go ahead and get our axle and get that ready to install. Okay, so let's go ahead and feed our axle in. We're going to feed it in through the front here, and then go ahead and just kind of flex that around. Feed that in. You want to be careful not to damage that seal. Line up those splines. And once you feel it engage, if you can't push it in any further, this is where you're using a rubber mallet on the other end of the axle shaft. We're going to go ahead and bonk that and pop that into the differential here. And that's it. If you look up inside, you're gonna notice that the CV axle end here of the stub shaft is right up against that seal, and that is perfect. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to adjust our axle here, swing this around, and we want to flex our CV axle over and in to our wheel hub. And then we're gonna twist our strut up and around. Once we have that up in a position, we're going to go ahead and put our bolt in, or at least one of them. And let's go ahead and get the lower bolt in. Go ahead and get the nut started. Let's go ahead and snug these down. I want to go ahead and install our axle nut. So I'm just going to reach around the back here and pull the axle through and then install the nut. Let's go ahead and snug that down. Now the new nut is a 32 millimeter. Now I want to go ahead and torque down our nut here for the axle, and that needs to be torqued to 162 foot-pounds. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this. One, you can put a couple lug nuts on two studs here, lower it down near the ground, and put a pry bar between the two, so when you go to tighten this, the pry bar actually locks the rotor in place. You could also have someone hop into the vehicle, apply the brakes while you torque it, or take a screwdriver, put it inside the cooling vanes like that, and go ahead and torque. Got to remove that screwdriver. Now that we're done torquing the axle nut here, there's a little notch in the axle, and what we want to do is just gently dimple the axle ridge there, or the axle nut ridge. Let's go ahead and torque down our strut to knuckle bolts to 112 foot-pounds. Let's now go ahead and install our ABS and brake flex hose. And take our hose here, get that lined up, and gonna grab one of our bolts. These here you can just go ahead and snug down. Couldn't get this lined up here. Get that bolt started. Then we have this one here. And once we have those started, we can go ahead and zip those down. And make sure they're snug. Go ahead and take your tie rod end, push that up into the knuckle, and get that nut started. Using a 19 millimeter socket, you want to go ahead and snug this down. Just snug it gently. Now I want to get and torque this down to 19 foot-pounds. Now you have two types of nuts here. You have a lock nut that has a nylon lock ring on the inside, or you're going to have the nut with a notch in it, the castle nut, where you would use a cotter pin to lock and secure that. This particular one is the nylon lock nut. Either one, you need to go ahead and torque to 19 foot-pounds. Now the next thing we want to do is we need to go ahead and tighten this nut in an additional 60 degrees. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to use a marker here, and I'm going to mark right here. Now 90 degree would be if I mark this right here, and this red mark would be tightened all the way over to here. We only have to come over probably to about right here. I'm going to mark this on the knuckle. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to tighten this nut until we get to our 60 degree mark right there on the knuckle, and then we'll be good. And go ahead and check that periodically. We're getting pretty close. There we go. Now, this is using a nylon lock nut style nut. If you have the cotter pin style with the castle nut, what you want to do is once you get to that 60 degree mark, go ahead and see if you can put that cotter pin in through the notch. If it does not line up, continue to tighten the nut just a little bit more in small increments until that notch in the castle nut lines up with the hole in the stud itself. and then install the cotter pin. Never loosen the nut to get that cotter pin to line up. Once you get that cotter pin in, go ahead and fold over those tabs. Go ahead and take your wheel. Get that lined up on the studs. Ideally, you want to go ahead and get all of the lug nuts started by hand first, and then we'll come on back and snug them down. We just want to gently snug these. Do this in a crisscross or star pattern. Now let's go ahead and torque them. You want to get and torque down your lug nuts to 88 foot-pounds. Ideally, you want to do this in a crisscross or star pattern. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.